Sochi, thanks so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. So the Working Families Party has to get 130,000 votes this year to maintain automatic ballot access, which is basically making it easier for candidates for your party to get on the ballot in the next election cycle. So in other words, if you don't get those votes, it's going to be a lot harder to get the WFP on the ballot in 2022. Are you worried that you're not going to get enough votes to break that 130,000 vote threshold?
We're talking to voters up and down the state, and what we're finding is that in this moment of intersecting crises, people are really looking for ways to vote their values and defeat Trump. And so we're seeing New Yorkers who are so clear that we need to stand in a united front against Trump, while also communicating that we want fully funded education and good housing and good health care. Voting on the WFP line allows people to have those two messages: defeat Trump and build a stronger New York that works for working people.
So what happens if you don't get those votes come November? If you don't get that automatic ballot access? The WFP has been really significant in a lot of elections over the last decade here in New York. So what's next for the WFP if you don't get those votes? Is this an end to the party in New York?
We had a really successful run this primary season, electing leaders like Jamal Bowman and Mondaire Jones, and new state leaders Jabari Brisport, Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, Anna Kellis, up and down the state, which really shows that voters have an appetite for the progressive leadership that we're putting forward. And the party will continue to do that, to recruit and run the most progressive, community-connected leaders, to push for legislative issues that matter to us, like taxing the wealthy in order to fund the programs that the working people need across the state, and to ensure that New York State remains a progressive beacon and one that centers the needs, the values, and the visions of working people, and the values that we need to stay a strong state for all of us people to thrive here.
Some have blamed the whole ballot access kerfuffle on 2018 when the WFP first put their weight behind Cynthia Nixon in the primary for governor instead of the governor. So some people have theorized that the governor, this is kind of like a personal vendetta to get back at the WFP. What do you think about that? Do you think that's what is behind this whole thing, or what's the impetus, I guess?
Well, while not speaking to anyone's personal motives, it is clear that the progressive movement is growing strong, and the Working Families Party was central in putting forward the candidates that defeated the Independent Democratic Conference, right? The turncoat Democrats who cavorted with Republicans and stymied progressive change at the state level. When progressives grow in power, backlash does ensue. But what we know is that voters want the legislative gains that came out of the Working Families Party successful campaign in 2018. Early vote would not have been possible had the IDC slayers not won in 2018. Historic tenant protections, landmark climate change legislation, those are the progressive change that New York voters want and deserve. And that is what the Working Families Party is all about. And we want to continue to do that work, and we will continue to do that work in order to ensure that New York is a state in which all of us can thrive.
So let's talk about the Working Families Party in general, because I feel like some voters might go to the ballot on election day or early voting. They'll see the WFP line and they'll say, well, why is that different than who I'm voting for on the Democrat line? So if I'm a voter that's going to vote, tell me why I might want to vote on the WFP line instead of the Democrat line for reasons other than ballot access, obviously.
Yeah, so the first thing is that people should understand we have fusion voting in New York State, which means that the votes that are cast on the Working Families Party line and the votes that are cast on the Democratic Party line for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris get fused or merged together, and which means that a vote to defeat Trump on the Working Families Party line counts exactly the same as a vote to defeat Trump on the Democratic Party line. But what the WFP line communicates is that we want a New York that is accountable to working people. So the WFP for the past 22 years has been pushing an issue agenda that has won. We passed the $15 minimum wage, paid sick leave, an end to the punitive Rockefeller drug laws, tenant protections, driver's license for undocumented neighbors. Those are the types of priorities that the Working Families Party has. And so we're saying in a blue state, why can we not actually be the most progressive state and a real beacon for working people in this country? If we want to keep pushing our state forward and therefore pushing the whole country forward in the same direction, We need a robust progressive movement to do that. And the Working Families Party has done that for the past 2 decades and continues to do so. So voting on that line allows us to defeat Trump and build the hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers speaking together in unison and saying, we want to ensure that we are all moving forward, that we all recover together out of this crisis, and that we have leadership that's accountable to parents and teachers and students and workers up and down the state. That is the type of state that we're trying to build. Working Families Party line helps ensure that we continue to do that.
Why have both parties? Why not just put your work behind, I don't know, just pushing establishment Democrats to the left, I guess? Why have both parties exist simultaneously?
We have to use many tools in our toolbox to ensure that our democracy works for working people. Shifting and shaping the Democratic Party is one of those ways. But we know that many of us are taken for granted in the Democratic Party or don't necessarily see ourselves within any of the two institutions. And we don't want the fact that some people feel alienated by the two-party system to mean that people just sit on the sidelines. We need to give people something to vote for, not just to vote against. And there are differences between our platform and the Democratic Party platform. And so we know that in order to really shape a New York that works for everyone and to focus on structural change issues, we need our own party to center that and to ensure that our values are not disconnected from our plan to win.
All right, Xochitl Nemeka from the Working Families Party, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Everyone get out to vote and vote on the Working Families Party line.